Alright, for this video, I'm going to be talking about my DVD collection. But I picked up a few more. Not really as many as I've been picking up, but I picked up a few. It's a 4-pack. Some of these were pretty good. My favorite on this, in this movie pack here, is To Hell and Back. That kid that was in this movie, he was actually a soldier in real life. And I guess he wrote a book about his life as a soldier, and it ended up being made into a movie, and they actually let him play himself in the movie. His name was, what was it? Audie Murphy or something like that. But yeah, it surprised me actually how good of an actor he was. Because all the actual actors that were in the movie, basically he made them look bad. I think it was because he was actually a soldier in real life, so he actually played the part really well. But yeah, To Hell and Back was my favorite out of all these. Rock Hudson was in, what was it, Battle Hymn? That was a decent movie. Wasn't really what I thought it was gonna be, because they didn't actually put a description or whatever you want to call it of the movies on here, so I didn't know what to expect from any of them. But I like these old war movies. Gray Lady Down was another good one. Charlton Heston, or however you pronounce his name, he was in that movie. It was a good movie. It was about a sub that got sank, and about the whole crew that was in the sub and how they were trying to survive being sank, and about all these other guys that were trying to save them. And at first I thought it was going to kind of suck because of the plot of the movie. I had never seen a movie quite like that before that I remember. But it actually turned out to be pretty good. Wake Island is the only one that I didn't actually watch out of the 4 movies that are in this pack. I'll get around to watching that sooner or later, though. Here's another 4 movie pack. Out of these 4 movies, the one that surprised me the most was Beyond the Law. Because Charlie Sheen is actually playing a serious role in this. He plays an undercover cop who, I think he got suspended or he got fired or something, and then he got brought on for this this undercover operation where he went undercover and he joined a biker gang. It was based on a true story. I think it was based on the same true story that you might have seen before. It's I think they've told this story on what was it? Gangland, I think. But yeah, Charlie Sheen actually surprised me because he was actually pretty good in this movie. Fall Time was one of those movies I didn't know what to expect because it had Stephen Baldwin, David Arquette, Mickey Rourke, and a bunch of other actors. And I didn't expect it to be what it was, to be honest. I mean, it turned out to be, because the reason I didn't really expect it to be as good a movie as what I thought it was because they actually tell you what's gonna happen, you know? Oh, these two guys, Mickey Rourke and Stephen Baldwin, they play basically these two wannabe, I guess you would call them wannabe mobsters or something like that. The movie's set, I think, in, what was it? Yeah, it's set in the 1950s. So these Stephen Baldwin and Mickey Rourke play these wannabe mobsters who are, they're gay. So, I found that kind of funny because they kept calling each other baby and all this crap. And these three teenage kids, played by David Arquette and these two other actors who I can't even begin to remember their names because they're not really famous. But anyway, these three teenage kids plan this prank where they are supposed to shoot one of their friends in front of the bank while Mickey Rourke and Stephen Baldwin are planning to rob that same bank. And basically the whole thing gets screwed up because their friend doesn't show up. Instead, Stephen Baldwin shows up, but they're too stupid to figure out that it's not their friend. So they go through with the prank anyway, pretending to shoot Stephen Baldwin, not knowing that it's not really their friend because they didn't actually take the time to look up and see that it wasn't their friend. So they basically pull up, do this drive-by, throw Stephen Baldwin's body in their trunk, and drive away. So Mickey Rourke, who thinks his lover has just been murdered, finds David Arquette's friend and basically tortures him until he tells him what happened. And then all hell breaks loose from there. And Ticker, it's a Tom Sizemore movie with Steven Seagal and all these other actors about these terrorists who plant bombs all over the place and blow a lot of crap up. Basically, it's just one of those. I wouldn't really call it an action movie because it wasn't. It's more of a drama type thriller, whatever you want to call it, you know, where you don't actually know what's really going on until the end of the movie. Then you find out who was really behind all the bombings and all that, because you actually, for the majority of the movie, you think it's someone else, and then at the end you actually find out that it's not who you thought it was, that it's actually the person who you thought was the victim. So yeah, it was that type of movie. Of Quicksand. Michael Keaton and Michael Caine and what was that actress's name? Judith something. I can't pronounce her last name. But yeah, it's a movie about this, I guess you would call him a banker who, I think he's supposed to work for the government or some shit like that. He's like this federal banker, some shit, in charge of the best way I could describe it is he investigates these cases where a lot of money changes hands and it doesn't really add up to him or something like that. Like for example, in the movie, he notices that I think it was like a $400,000 transaction had taken place, and it didn't really show where the money came from, and it was going to this movie studio. I think it was in France. So he basically is forced to go to France to investigate and find out where the money came from, what it was for, and stuff like that. So he goes over there, and then he's framed for murder because it turns out that the movie studio is ran by this Russian criminal, and they're not actually producing movies at all. They're running some sort of weird I don't even know how to describe it. It's some sort of weird porn production company. It turns out. You don't find that out though until like almost the end of the movie, that they're actually producing porn. And they have Michael Caine, who's supposed to be this action star, who's starring in one of their movies, which turns out later in the movie you find out that it's not a real movie at all. It's actually fake. They're using that to get millions of dollars from investors. Basically, they're basically stealing money, and apparently this Russian criminal is taking the money and using it to support his porn productions and his criminal activity, I guess. Another Western double pack. The Deadly Trackers. Basically, The Deadly Trackers is about this sheriff. I think they said it was a sheriff in Texas, if I remember right. Yeah, it's a sheriff in Texas who, well, basically what happens is these, I guess you would call them bandits, rob a bank in his town, and he thinks he has them surrounded. They can't get away, and then all of a sudden the leader of the gang kidnaps his son. Then they turn around and end up killing his son and his wife, so that's what makes him go out, and basically he forgets that he's a sheriff and just goes on a rampage. Basically, he follows them into Mexico, and basically he goes crazy. That's the best way I can describe it. But yeah, it was a good movie. Man in the Wilderness, starring the same actor that played the sheriff in The Deadly Trackers. His name's Richard Harris. Man in the Wilderness is basically about this guy. He's a trapper, and he gets attacked and mauled by a bear, and he's traveling with this huge group of people, and they basically just leave him for dead after he gets attacked by the bear. They just leave him laying on the ground and continue on their journey because they're trying to make it to some river. I think it was a Missouri River or some shit like that they were trying to make it to. They're traveling, let me see. Yeah, it says they're on this 600-mile journey across the Northwest Territories, trying to make it to the river because they have this boat that they're pulling along with them, and they end up leaving this guy thinking he's gonna die. He ends up basically surviving despite the fact that both of his legs get messed up, his arm gets messed up, he can barely move, he's forced to basically crawl all over the place, and he ends up surviving. Basically, he becomes more or less a wild man. And eventually he meets up with the people who left him for dead. The whole way through the movie, though, I thought he was going to make it back to where they were and end up killing all of them, but he didn't do that. I thought the ending of the movie sucked, really, to be honest. Because basically, the whole way through the movie, I thought it was going to be one of those where he wants revenge or something like that, but it didn't turn out to be that way. And if you watch the movie, you'll see what I mean. At the end of the movie, it turns out that he just wanted one thing, and it's not even what anyone would have guessed that it would have been that he wanted. The whole way through the movie, you're thinking, oh, he's going to kill him, he's going to kill him. Then he doesn't. He just walks up, says a few words, gets what he wants, and that's about it. Predator. Everybody's seen this movie, I think. So I don't really have to describe what it's about. The Dead. As far as zombie movies go, there really hasn't been a good zombie movie in a while, but I actually thought this one was a good zombie movie. It was different than most of the other zombie movies that I've ever seen. I mean, it was basically, what happens is, it's set in Africa, okay? And what happens is this American, what was it? Yeah, this American Air Force lieutenant gets trapped in Africa because his plane crashes. Because they go to flee when the outbreak happens. Their plane crashes because they didn't take the time to actually get fuel or anything, so the plane crashes. He's the only one who survives the crash. You think someone else survived the crash, but you find out later they didn't because you see him later as a zombie. So he ends up meeting up with this guy from the African military, and they basically team up and make their way across Africa. And the guy from the African military is basically, he's searching for his son because he goes back to where he lived and finds out his wife died. She was eaten by zombies. So he sets out with this American lieutenant from the Air Force, and they go out trying to find his son. They have to make their way all the way across Africa. But yeah, I thought it was a good movie. It's one of the only decent zombie movies I've seen in a while. Okay. This movie is one of my favorite movies. I've already watched this movie twice. I can't even begin to describe. I mean, basically this movie combines a lot of different genres all into one movie. It's like a samurai, western, film noir. Basically it combines westerns, samurai movies, film noir, along with stuff like graphic novels and a lot of other stuff, all into this movie. Despite the fact that it's not actually based upon a graphic novel. It's completely original. The writer made everything up you see in the movie. So it's hard to really describe the movie itself because there's nothing really to go on to tell you what it's like. Because I don't think I've ever seen a movie that was really like this. Basically, the best way I can describe it is you have this, well, there's two of them. You have these two guys. One of them is a western type drifter. The other one is kind of like a samurai. And they join forces and set out to eliminate the bad guy played by Ron Perlman. Basically, Ron Perlman's character is this gang leader slash psychopath, and he's got all these other killers that he calls them that work for him. So these two guys have to basically take out his entire gang almost by themselves until the end of the movie, and then they join forces with another group of people who want to kill him just as much as they do. But yeah, I thought it was one of the best movies I've seen in a while. It's one of my favorite movies. Dylan Dog. It was actually supposed to be kind of action, horror, comedy type deal, but I didn't really find it funny, to be honest. I think if they had a better cast and actually cast someone for the part of Dylan that actually was funny, then it would have been a better movie, to be honest, because they casted Brandon Routh as Dylan, and he's not funny. I don't know if I've showed this before or not. Cedar Rapids. I didn't think it was funny at all, to be honest. I mean, the only one that was funny in this movie was John C. Reilly. The rest of the cast was more or less just boring. Basically, the whole movie was boring except for when John C. Reilly was telling his jokes. A very Harold and Kumar Christmas. I thought this movie was funny as hell. It's basically it's just an over-the-top comedy, basically. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. But you should also look for this movie if you haven't seen it, because, like I said, it's one of my favorite movies. And I've already seen it twice, and I'll end up watching it again sooner or later because it's just a good movie. But yeah, I just wanted to make a video and talk about the movies that I picked up. I have a lot more videos that are going to be coming out sometime in the next couple of weeks. I'm getting a new camera, an actual HD camera this time. Well, the one I'm shooting on, this camera kind of sucks. So I'm just going to get a full HD camera to start doing my videos that way. I'm also getting a, an HD PVR to start doing gameplay videos and stuff like that. I'm going to be moving at the beginning of March, so hopefully I can get all these videos uploaded before I move. If not, it'll be after I move. I don't know. But as soon as I can, I'm going to start uploading a lot more videos because I have a lot of stuff that I haven't shown.